Welcome to our Passover 2018 video. Judgment of the sheep and the goats, gold confiscation, bull worship, and morning stars. Passover occurs from Friday evening on March 30th, 2018 through Saturday evening on April 7th, 2018. Let's take a look at some important planetary facets as well as ingresses and a full moon called Levana in the Hebrew language, the zodiac sign placements that occur during Passover 2018, taking care to especially notice conjunctions in the sign of Aries, the ram, or the sheep, being Tale in Hebrew, and Capricorn goats being Gedai in Hebrew, which we will apply later on in this video to St. Matthew's Gospel, chapter 25, verses 32 to 34, and then we will skip down to verse 41. We will also have ingresses of the planet Venus, which is Noga in Hebrew, being a morning star of sexual desire, charm, to zodiac sign, into the zodiac sign of Taurus, the golden calf being Shur in Hebrew, causing worship of love, romance, money, and the possessions that one owns, which we will then apply Exodus chapter 32, verses 2 to 4, towards explaining what was an ancient confiscation of the precious metal of gold by the high priest Aaron. Jesus, the morning star, is revealed in Revelation 22:16. The book of St. John the Revelator, Revelation 22:16, which is Apocalypse in Greek. So on March 30th, 2018, Venus, morning star of sexual desire, charm, ingress, Taurus the bull or golden calf, and Mercury, morning star of logic, charm, in Aries. And again, Aries is in Hebrew the constellation Tale. Okay, Aries the ram or sheep, trine north node. So it's going to be Mercury trine north node, Levant facet in the sign of Leo, the lion, spoken of in Revelation 5:5, as chapter 5, verse 5, which is called Ari, or the Ari, when speaking of this constellation in Hebrew. Now, Mercury is going to be retrograde at that time. On March 31st, 2018, we're going to have a full moon, mansions of the moon, in the sign of Libra, the scales. That's Libra, the scales of justice, being Moznaim in Hebrew. And that's the seventh house of law and commitment, where Aries is a kid. It's similar to the seventh house. Libra is similar to the seventh house of law and commitment. Libra, the scales. And we have Aries, the ram, being similar to the first house of self and appearances, and how one looks, how one thinks about oneself and feels about oneself. Now, the second house of Taurus is akin to the natural second house of money and possessions. We're going to get into that a little bit later on here. And Leo is akin to the natural fifth house of children and creativity. Scorpio it's going to be Jupiter retrograde in Scorpio at that time during Passover, and that's going to be akin to the natural eighth house of birth, sex, debt, and death, and that's the Hebrew constellation of Ekrab. And we have Capricorn, it's the 10th house, that's the Hebrew constellation of Gedi, and that's the 10th house. And the 10th house stands for social standing and fame. Okay? Okay, moving to the next portion, we have March 31st. Again, it's going to be a full moon in Libra. That's the natural 7th house of law and commitment. Moznaim. April 1st, that's April Fool's Day. It's also Easter Sunday, 2018, April 1st. It's called Hama because we have the sun called Hama or Hama in Hebrew, the Son of God, conjunct Mercury. They're in conjunction because they're in this. They're cooperating. That increases their power. The sun and Mercury, and Mercury is called Kokav in Hebrew, being a morning star of logic charm in the sign of Aries, the ram or sheep. Again, that's the Hebrew constellation of Tale and the natural first house of self and appearances. Okay, now on April 2nd, 2018, we have Mars, the planet Mars. Planet Mars is here, and it's called Ma'adim in Hebrew. It's a warring aspect of God, conjunct Saturn. See, Saturn right here. They're working in cooperation. Conjunct Saturn, called Shabbatai in Hebrew, law of God, Capricorn, in the sign of Capricorn, the goat. So we have Saturn called Shabbatai in Hebrew, and that's Saturn is the law of God in the sign of Capricorn, the goat, and that stands for the goats. Okay? Now on April 4th, 2018, we have Mercury, morning star of logic, charm in Aries. Remember, we have this Mercury in Aries. Aries, the ram or sheep, square Mars. Okay, it's going to be square Mars. It's going to be square the planet Mars. You have a square aspect, which is going to create a tension. All right? A square causes tension. It's a precursor to activity. And Mars is a warring aspect of God in the sign of Capricorn, the goats. Again, this is social standing and fame, natural 10th house, akin to that. Again, the Hebrew constellation is Gedi. Okay? Now, we have on April 5th of 2018, Mercury, morning star of logic, charm in Aries, ram or sheep, square Saturn. Square Saturn. Remember, Saturn's conjunct Mars and Mercury's conjunct the Sun. So we have Mercury on April 5th in Aries conjunct, square Saturn, law of God in Capricorn, the goat, which stands for the goats. So we have Mars conjunct Saturn in Capricorn. We have Mercury conjunct the Sun in Aries. So we've got Mercury in Aries square Mars in Capricorn. Like that. Goes like that. We also have on the 4th, we have Mercury in Aries, square Mars in Capricorn, and then on the 5th we have Mercury in Aries square Saturn. So remember, Saturn is law of God, and Capricorn stands for the goats. So Saturn is the law of God, Capricorn stands for the goats. Mercury is a communication, and it's a morning star of logic charm in the sign of the ram or the sheep, Aries, which stands for the sheep, and that is going to be, we have Mercury square Saturn on the 5th. So on the 4th, Mercury square Mars, and on the 5th, Mercury square Saturn. On April 7, 2018, we have Venus, the planet Venus, morning star of sexual desire charm in the sign of Taurus, the bull or golden calf. Trine, we have a trine aspect to Saturn. A trine aspect to Saturn. Okay? And that trine aspect to Saturn, remember, Saturn is the law of God, and Saturn is going to be in Capricorn, the sign of the goats. So we've got, again, Venus on April 7, 2018, morning star of sexual desire charm in the sign of Taurus, the bull or golden calf, trine Saturn, law of God, in Capricorn, the goats. Now, the reason we're not giving you all of the little specific degrees, because there's 30 degrees in each of these 12 signs, which equals 360 degrees in all. So the reason we're not giving you the exact degrees is because this chart was made for this portion of time between March 30th, 2018 and April 7, 2018, which is Passover. But we're giving you the general aspects, the planetary aspects. It's good to remember that God protects His people when you recite His scriptures during Passover, which will include Easter Sunday on April 1st, 2018. Keep in mind that on April Fool's Day, 2018, the sun, or Son of God, will be conjunct or cooperating with his mercurial morning star of logic charm aspect in the Mazzaroth, which is Hebrew for zodiac sign of Aries, the ram or the sheep, who, quote, hear, unquote, his, quote, voice, unquote, in the Gospel of St. John, chapter 10, verse 27. Here are some biblical chapters and verses that would be good to recite during this time. The Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 25, verses 32 to 34, in the Webster Bible translation. Now watch this. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he will separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he will set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then will the king say to them on his right hand, Come ye, blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. The Gospel of St. Matthew 25, chapter 25, verse 41, the Webster Bible translation. Now follow this. Then will he say also to them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Now, oftentimes when we talk about from God's perspective, God's perspective often is the opposite of man's perspective. Whether one is sitting in the chair of the worshipful master or whether one is facing the worshipful master might determine whether or not you have Yaakov or Boaz on which side. But that's a little bit more intense Kabbalah, which we'll get into more later on. Now, going to the book of Exodus. That's chapter 32, verses 2 to 4 in the Webster Bible translation. Now watch this. And Aaron said to them, Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them to me. And all the people broke off their golden earrings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he received them at their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool. After he had made it a molten calf, and they said, These are thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Now we're going to Revelation, book of Revelation, chapter 22, verse 16 in the Webster Bible translation, we read, I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify to you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, the bright and morning star. So now this is my aside. The sun stands for the Son of God, and the sun in Aries, where the sheep are. And we have Saturn, where the goats are. Saturn. And Mars, god of war, where the goats are. The law of God, and Saturn, where the goats are. We have Mercury, Saint Raphael, the Archangel Raphael, also the Archangel Raphael, and the Apostle Paul is associated with the planet Mercury. And we have the sun, or the Son of God, associated with the sheep. In Aries, the ram. And we have Venus in the sign of the bull. Remember, the bull has to do with the natural second house of money and possessions. Venus, the morning star of sexual love, magic, charms, in that affixed there. See how that is? Now, we go to Revelation chapter 5, verse 5 in the Webster Bible translation. Now watch this. And one of the elders saith to me, Weep not, behold the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book and to loose its 7 seals. We have the North Node in Leo. The North Node is what the Hindus call your dharma, your life purpose. Very important things that you're going to learn in your life. We have the North Node in the sign of Leo, the Ari, or the Ari, or the Ari. What you need to understand is the 7 ancient planets have to do with the 7 churches in the book of Revelation. The 7 churches, and also has to do with the 7 chakras of the body, which we've talked about in some of our blogs on astrology, angel magic, and zodiac angel magic. If you can look it up, it's Pastor Rosemary's Astrology, Angel Magic, and also Zodiac Angel Magic on the internet. All right, so this is going to be a very important Passover 2018. Thank you for watching and listening.